people can tell me to stop. Lower the lights down, hand over my crown, hand over my heart. I do this for my town, I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud, my time. None of you people can tell me to stop.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of MGR Unplugged. David, how are you today?
Great, as always.
I wanted to start today with the... we're going to have to start a new segment called Crypto Watch. Because, seriously, I mean, last Thursday, we were recording this thing on Thursday. I forgot what day it was. It was the 8th or something of January. And we were talking about Bitcoin that had just reached $40,000 per Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And, of course, over the weekend, and I think the lowest point was on Monday when it went all the way down to 30. 29.5 or 29 something.
No, it didn't break 29.
Didn't break 29. I know 30 for sure. Okay. I was just looking at the chart right there. So, but I didn't know if it was broken down enough. But so, anyways, it went down 26% in about 3 days, and not only Bitcoin but also Ethereum and some other major cryptocurrencies. But and at that point, you start seeing all these, more you than me, all these Twitter comments about people saying, "Oh, see, I told you Bitcoin is a fraud," and blah, blah, and all that shit.
Always the same thing.
But at the same time, you have other guys saying, "I hope you bought the dip," or "You're buying the dip," because at that point, we didn't know what was going to happen. But as always, they say, this time is different, So what is different about this time?
Nothing. I mean, just Bitcoin went up from basically 10,000 to 40,000 in... what, like a month and a half?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So, I mean...
in a year it went from 4,000 when it dipped.
If something quadruples in a month and a half, you have to expect a pullback at some point. I was expecting one.
Yeah.
And it pulled back, and now we're right back. It was a long, hard 4-day bear market, and then it went back.
Yeah, I should have said that by today, as of this recording, Bitcoin is up to 39.5. I think it actually did hit 40 again earlier this morning. So, like you said, in 4 days, pretty much in 4 days, or in 6 days or so, in a week, it went from 40 down to 30. That's basically a 25% dip, which in any other market environment, it will be like a major correction. And then it went.
You see people saying,
"Yeah,
Bitcoin is now in a bear market." I'm thinking, a bear market? It's up.
I know.
Even when it went down, and it was still up 300% over the last 2 months.
Yeah, and you have to have consistent quarters of going down to have a bear market or recession or whatever. But this is not even the same comparison. It doesn't even compare. But anyways, after the consolidation, a lot of people, they're like. I think now that I'm more familiar with Bitcoin and crypto in general, I mean, I've been investing, or we've been investing or playing with it. You longer than me, I think, but for about 5 years now. So we've seen enough of this roller coaster ride. And
every time it goes up and it goes on a run, I always think the same thing. Man, when it dipped, I wish I bought more.
I know.
Every time. So now, when it dips like it did this week, I don't question. I just say, no, I'm going to buy, because I know every time I regret not buying when there's a dip. So, did you buy the dip? I hope you did. I did.
Yeah, that is true. But at the same time, I don't think Bitcoin shouldn't be for... I know some people do speculate on Bitcoins and cryptos in general, but it shouldn't be for that. I think if you're going to be looking at Bitcoin every day, which I'm guilty of that, you're guilty of that, we do all the time just because of curiosity. But really, Bitcoin should be something that you just buy it and let it ride for like 5, 10, look at the price, 15 years.
I look at the price daily just because I like to.
Yeah,
and
it kind of makes you feel good when you see it going up.
Yeah, especially when it's going up. And because I know that, the classic strong hands, weak hands.
Right.
I know I have strong hands. I know that I'm not going to see some fluctuation.
Right.
Basically, I held when it went from 20 all the way down to 3. So I've seen it go really bad, and I never sold, and I kept buying more. So I'm not worried. But yes, when people ask me who are very nervous about buying crypto, and they're like, "Oh, should I buy Bitcoin?" I tell them, if you do it, you need to buy it and then never look at the price.
And just forget it.
And just literally
let it go.
come back in 4 years.
Forget it, but don't forget your password. That's another thing.
Yeah.
That has been in the news lately with somebody. I heard that somebody lost the password and it's like $200,000 that they don't know how to recover.
Yeah, that was
or
going
something.
around. And
Huh?
that was going around.
Yeah.
It was like the guy had a wallet that
Yeah,
basically...
well, it's like everything, It's just that crypto passwords are very, very secure and not easy to recover. So,
we're actually getting pretty close. If Bitcoin continues this run and it gets to like 100,000 a Bitcoin, like some people think, Satoshi, whoever it is, or
the founder,
whatever
the
group,
creator,
will become the richest person in the world. Because they have about 800,000.
Well,
Bitcoin.
we don't know how much Elon Musk owns some Bitcoin to add to his
I don't know. I have
wealth.
No idea. I don't think he owns very much. I mean, he might own some, but
I mean, there's pretty wealthy people that own quite a bit. Like Mark
yeah, but
Cuban.
Satoshi Nakamoto owns 800,000
coins.
Yeah,
Wow.
and
is
it's
a lot.
just there in these old wallets, and it's never
So
been
he
touched.
pretty much owns about 5%, 6% of the whole Bitcoin inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's
So 800,000 Bitcoin when they're 100,000 a pop, that's 80 billion.
yeah, that's amazing. But I mean, it also we're talking about investing.
Did I get that right? Is that 80 billion or how much is that?
Huh?
Anyways, whatever.
Talking about investing and forgetting it, it doesn't help that Bitcoin doesn't stop trading. Basically, it's not like the stock market that you can see. Wall Street opens at 9:30 and closes at 4:30 or whatever, 4. But crypto basically is like any other market. I mean, it's 24/7. So even after hours over the weekend, you see fluctuations and things that happen when you cannot do. You basically it's no market hours. So, but aside from that, I mean, I think the reason why I said before this time is different is because one of the things that I actually kind of realized this morning too is that when crypto was fairly new and new for people, not so much new. I mean, the technology has been around for 10 years or whatever, whenever the first Bitcoin was mined or created. But now, in this time, 2021, it's like crypto and Bitcoin is much more mature. So with maturity comes more trustworthiness from people, from investors, from people that were skeptical before. Now they start trusting it more. Even like we discussed the other day, institutions are now starting to put allocation into cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. So, you expect this volatility to continue just because the market value is not compared to any other major stock or commodity. But at the same time, it has survived all these things. When you start saying, okay, well, it's kind of like build this kind of immunity as far as being able to survive dips and this and that, and all these people that speculate and buy and sell and all that. But the underlying factor, the underlying value of Bitcoin continues to be there, and as it ages, it has more reputation.
Some investor actually said this week. I forget which investor it was, but he said it exactly right, and he said that I think a lot of people don't understand that the higher the price of Bitcoin goes, that the safer it becomes as a investment. And some people say, well, no, because that means it's in a bubble. He said, no, people don't understand. A lot of it is network effects. Bitcoin is a network in the same way. Why is Facebook so hard to beat despite how many people don't like Facebook or trash Facebook and all that? Because Facebook has billions of users, and to beat a network with billions of users is very, very difficult. And so the bigger Bitcoin's network gets, the more valuable Bitcoin becomes, and the more entrenched it becomes too. And on a lot of ways, right now we're seeing the network effects with institutions, where all of a sudden some institutions started getting into it, and then more did, and now all of a sudden it's like every institution is saying, oh, we need to get basically our own allocation of Bitcoin. And so then that's the network effect between institutions. But it applies to developers too, right? If you're looking to develop in the decentralized space, where are you going to go to? Are you going to go to some random project that who knows if it's even going to exist in 2 years, or are you going to try to develop on top of Bitcoin and make Bitcoin better, which is the largest, right? So these networks effects apply to everything. And then eventually the ultimate network effect will be people using it. The reason why the dollar is hard to beat is because everybody uses the dollar, right? But at some point, Bitcoin may surpass that. We'll see. I'm sure the government will do something about it. But
keep in mind, we're in a situation now where the stock market, has been like in another bull run for a long time. I mean, we had this kind of dip during the beginning of the pandemic about 12 months ago, basically February, March last year. And then from there on, with all this economy and stimulus packages and everything else, the market has been record highs again. So I understand that people are saying, okay, well, the market is more of a safe bet right now because it's more steady, and you can see, you're going to see a growth of maybe 10-15% a year, but it's a sure growth on investing in companies that have brick and mortar solid stuff. But keep in mind too that the reason why those companies are of the stock is appreciating or very overvalued these days is because, one, the Fed is buying equities all the time. So it's basically the Fed printing money is causing these stocks, and buying stocks is causing the stocks to go up. And then companies are also buying back their own stock, which is something that some people agree with or not. I mean, a company when a company makes a profit, they have two options. Basically, they either give a dividend to the shareholders as a reward for trusting the stock, or they decide to buy back their own stock, which by definition is also a give back to the shareholders because they increase the value of the stock by buying and having more demand and less supply, which increases the value. Some companies may end up doing a mix of both, but that doesn't happen with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is on a standalone trade platform and trade value, where it's not a company, so it's not like people can buy back more Bitcoin or anything, so it's growing on its own, so you can't compare it to stocks or anything. So I think, like me as an investor, I can't ignore the fact that Bitcoin or Ether, or I think those are the two major ones at this point, they have a position as a portfolio diversification. Like if you go to invest, you can put your money in the stock market because it's doing great now, but at some point that bubble will burst, and we've seen in history just tells us that it's going to happen. So when, nobody knows, there's thousands of people that say maybe this year, maybe next year, whatever, but whenever it happens, we know it does happen every 5, 6, 7 years. We have a pullback, if not sooner. Crypto is different. It's in a different environment. The same thing with commodities, whether it's metal commodities like gold, silver, or agriculture or whatever. They have a different kind of growth. So definitely, I think, and I was a little skeptical when I started investing in cryptocurrencies like 5-6 years ago. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to put a little percentage, just kind of play money type thing, But now it's a little more serious part of the portfolio, like saying, okay, I'm diversifying and I trust this almost as much as I trust everything else, so I need to consider this as a potential thing because I don't really know if the stock's overvalued. When you see price to earnings ratios from some companies that are like...
See, I was going to say, I think the opposite. I think that actually the market is...
way overvalued.
Yeah. I mean, at some point the market's going to have a pullback, right? I mean, you just have to look at the... Like people were joking the other day, and I agree. Like, who looks at price to earnings ratios anymore?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It's like
that used to be the main.
Don't even bother.
The main indicator on whether you are basically buying on what you think the company is going to be worth X years from now. Okay, that's basically investing. You don't buy on the current value of the company. You buy on whatever you think the company will be worth years from now. So you're anticipating that increase in value.
Right.
But when that increase in value is so outrageous, I mean, a company is not going to grow like 500x, anytime soon, especially if we say, okay, well, that's impossible. I mean, you see, like you mentioned, I think it was last week, Teslas and Shopify's and all these other companies that are like bubbling completely. And it's like, yeah, I love Tesla, but is it going to go like 300x? I mean, it's just not feasible, So
yeah, Tesla's a unique one where there's a lot of reasons why it's going up, not just because of the earnings, but like Shopify. I mean, I really like Shopify, but when they're valued at 200-300 times earnings, and they're growing and they'll grow more, but basically it's a great company, but the growth is already priced in to the stock So I don't really see a whole lot of investment upside. And the only
Right.
reason these stocks keep going up is because the Fed is pushing them up, right? The Fed is literally buying shares
Not
in
just our
companies.
Fed, but all the central banks all over the place, all over the world. That's the difference. That before it was just when the Fed, which is our central bank, lowers interest rates, some people want to make their money work for them. The only solution is to invest, and so that's what investors will do. But now the Fed is also investing in the stock market, buying equity. So that's a bunch of money that is obviously
Right. Like obviously you have to look at the risk reward of any
Right.
investment.
Right.
And the risk of the risk of Bitcoin is it'll go down 50% at any point, any given time, doesn't matter, right? It could. It just went this week down almost 30% just like that out of nowhere. So that's the risk with Bitcoin. But the positive with Bitcoin is but it could also 10x in a
Right.
year.
Exactly. So you don't want to be on the sidelines if when that happens either. So again, if you are just being like a speculator or trader or day trader or something or weekly trader or something, you say, okay, I'm gonna buy coin today at 20, buy the dip at 30, and then hopefully go to 40, and then I sell it and make $10,000 right away. That's fine if that's what you want, but you're gonna be hit both ways. I mean, that's very proven. Now, I think it's better to just put whatever.
Well, if you're, it's totally different. It's totally different.
Right.
If you're a professional trader, okay, you can do that. But most people are not.
No, I'm talking about not the professional traders. I'm talking people that say, okay, I have some money saved, and in my bank is doing nothing because I get zero interest, so I need to put it somewhere so it grows a little bit. Yeah, I can basically just leave it there, and it's nothing, and it's safe, but it's also depreciating because of inflation and everything. So I can put it somewhere. If I don't need the money anytime soon, and I can take a risk of maybe losing a value of the money, a portion of the money, but with an upside that is much better, is the risk reward, like you said. I mean, there's no investment that is 100% safe, basically. So unless you just basically don't invest and just put your money into a savings account and just let it sit there.
Right, but even there, you're losing money.
Exactly, that's the point. So you invest to make your money at least beat inflation or do something. You say, okay, I'm going to put some money into Bitcoin, and then I'm not going to look at it every day. Yeah, I may look at it every day or whatever, but I'm not going to act on it every day. I'm going to let it go for 10 years. And a lot of people need to be wrong if Bitcoin is not worth $100,000 in 10 years from now. There's a limited supply. So that alone tells you
100,000 in 10 years?
or more. I mean, obviously, I know. There's numbers that say
I think. Again, we've talked about this before. I think Bitcoin will get into the six figures. I think once, like some people talk about Bitcoin $1 million and all that. I'm not saying that couldn't happen, but I'm saying I think the big question mark there is just what are governments going to do?
the $100,000 per Bitcoin is a big psychological
Yeah, but we're not
benchmark.
that far from that.
No, we're not. I mean, it
I
basically needs to double.
pure speculation. Don't listen to any predictions that anybody says, especially me. But I think that there's not a bad chance that Bitcoin hits 100,000 this year.
This year.
Yeah.
I don't know about this year because a lot of things are going on too, and again because the market is doing well.
No, because, dude, I've been through these Bitcoin bull runs before. Bitcoin doesn't go up steadily. Bitcoin goes up, is either flat or up or down a little bit for years, which is basically what it was, and then it skyrockets, and all of that will happen in. Like normally the movements happen in like 6 month spans where all of a sudden in the last bull market, it went 20x in basically 6 months, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if we were to go 20x from, let's say where it was $10,000 a Bitcoin, that would obviously be $200,000 a Bitcoin. Now, maybe we won't go 20x, we go 10x, but it's possible, right? Like the last few times it's gone from all-time high to the next bull run all-time high, it pretty much 20x's. So it went from 1,000 to 20,000. And so by that theory, it would go from 20,000 this time to 400,000.
Yeah.
But I don't think it'll be that extreme. But if it 10x's, that'd be 200,000.
Right. I mean, the growth also tapers as you get higher, and especially a lot of more people will hit their quote unquote sell mark, where they say, okay, well, I bought it at X price, And then if
Yeah,
it
but
gets
I
to
think that number is
50
I think
or
that number
60,
is pretty high.
yeah, it could. It depends. I mean, I think newer investors are probably a little more cautious and
Yeah,
say,
but the majority of Bitcoin holders are people who've held for years. It's not new
yes,
investors.
of course, yeah. But again, as you have more demand, it becomes more widespread. You're gonna find all investors that are basically individual investors that say, you know what, I'm gonna buy a Bitcoin or half a Bitcoin or whatever portion they want, and they say, if it goes up 50%, 100%, I know I could have another upswing or something, but rather I'm comfortable just doubling my money. So they buy it at 20, they sell it at 40, and then they're happy. But again, somebody else will buy that Bitcoin too. So, all right. So, but the other thing that I wanted to go to is there's actually funny because I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but when Jack Dorsey was talking about the Twitter's let's just put it this way, Twitter banned President Trump or ban the account for life, basically permanently. Before it was like 24 hours, then they gave him like, I think, another warning or something. I don't know exactly the sequence of events, but they ended up just banning the account completely. Not only that, but also other accounts that he was using to post tweets because they were detrimental to safety or promoting violence, whatever. I don't want to get into the political side, but Jack Dorsey said, on the one end, as CEO of Twitter, said that sets a bad precedent. I don't know exactly his quote.
Yeah, he said basically doing something like that sets a dangerous precedent.
Right.
That it hurts the open and free ideals of the internet.
Right.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Which you go back to Jack Dorsey's and Twitter's previous responses to other accounts that were banned, whether they were conspiracy theories or this or that. They keep saying that they police things and they are playing this balance act between freedom of speech and then not helping promote violence and other things. But beyond that, what I wanted to get back to the connection with crypto is that he said that he mentioned indirectly blockchain and Bitcoin.
No, he mentioned it directly.
Well,
he literally said Bitcoin. In his tweets.
So what was his? Do you know more of his?
Yeah. He had a little tweet thread.
Right.
He basically said he was giving his reasoning as to why they banned Donald Trump because he hasn't said anything about it, and he said I can pull it up, but he said we did it because of the safety and we didn't want to have public harm, but he says it sets a dangerous precedent, and that he doesn't take any satisfaction in banning people, that he said he sees it as a failure on Twitter's part every time they have to ban somebody, blah 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 blah. And then he at the end he mentioned he said this is why I'm such a believer in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is not controlled by any single person or entity. And he said that they are still working, which they announced a year ago, on like a blockchain based Twitter, which will be basically uncontrolled by anybody.
Decentralized, right?
Yeah.
Which he, like you said, he's already said that for. I mean, I've heard that in previous interviews that he had. Obviously, it's not something they can just whip up, but it's something they've been working on or thinking about for the last 12, 18 months, I think. But the thing is that he did mention blockchain and Bitcoin, which he also, with his other company, the one that he's really more active, it looks like a CEO, which is Square, owns about $186 million worth of Bitcoin, basically. So he's significantly invested in Bitcoin. He knows it very well, and he knows obviously the blockchain, and that's where he sees the future of maybe the social media platform Twitter or whatever they end up calling it. I'm not sure if it's gonna make like we even talk about here, like the all-out, Twitter,
The Wild West
Twitter, that will be maybe decentralized and be in the blockchain, and then one that is monitored like a forum, like saying, okay, we have some rules here. If you don't respect the rules, you will be banned. And that's another interesting conversation with that, because I was thinking about, there's been so much talk about all these social media platforms banning accounts, not just President Trump's accounts, but also accounts that supported him and things like that. And then you start saying, okay, on the one hand, you hear comments saying, okay, they're all private institutions and they have their own rules, and you break their rules and they have the right to ban you. But at the same time, they've gone beyond being that. I think they've gone to become open forums for voicing your opinion, and then people say, oh, it's a freedom of speech. yeah, you have freedom of speech, but the same thing in your company. You have the freedom of speech in your company, but you say something that goes against the company, the CEO or your boss has the right to fire you. So
The thing that scared me much more than the Facebook and Twitter banning part was actually the infrastructure companies banning. Like, one thing is, if you're Twitter or Facebook and you basically say, hey, listen, our platform is going to be basically moderated by our rules. And so if you use our platform, you're going to have to follow our speech rules. No different than any other company, right? Internally in a company, you can basically say, hey, in this office, these are our rules, right? So companies can do that. But as long as there are, as long as there are other competitors where they say, okay, and if you want to go to a place where you don't have these speech rules, fine, go to another platform. But then when other platforms like Parler and basically other platforms get banned off the App Store, and then not only that AWS, their hosting shuts them down. Stripe cancels all payment processing. That's where it gets dangerous. That's where it's like, okay, so now, because one thing is if you're saying, hey, this is our platform and we want to have these speech ideals, but we're okay if you want to go to another platform and have different speech ideals. But when all of a sudden the infrastructure backend, I mean, that's basically shutting off someone's servers is no different than like, literally, if I don't like you, I'm going to shut off your electricity and your water.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what it is. You're shutting off a company's electricity.
Right.
That's a whole different level.
Right.
That's what scares me.
And I compare that to, let's just say that we go back 20 years with our social media, and you have a real social club or something, and then you have some club rules where it says, okay, this is the club rules, and then this is what we do. We gather together, we have a lunch, we'll have lunch, whatever, we can discuss whatever we want, but there's no fighting, there's no things. I mean, I go to many clubs, racing, whatever, where they say, okay, you can compete with each other, be very competitive, but there's no fighting in the pit lanes, whatever. Everybody has rules. And if you break those rules, you could be banned, you could be suspended, you could be all that stuff. So it's normal. So back in the days with our social media, or still today in other environments, you can be, you have a behavior that is not according to the club rules, you're subject to any kind of disciplinary action, whether it's first warning, second warning, banned for life, whatever. So to a certain point, I do understand, like you said, these companies say, hey, we have these rules, but at the same time, the problem that I have is that sometimes those rules are very inconsistent. And then it's when you get into, they did this because they are Republicans versus Democrats, and these companies are all very liberal, and that's also true, I think, that it's very hard to be, it's like a referee, it's very hard to make the same calls equally for both teams. Sometimes you're going to err one way or the other. I don't know if they do it on purpose or not. Maybe they do, because the decision makers are more on the liberal side. And if I were supporting one person or another, maybe it's more difficult to be completely neutral and say, well, is what Trump said different than what the BLM people said, or these violent rioters where they were looting companies and looting property and destroying personal property and vandalizing shit, and the Democrats were saying, they're just having their own freedom of speech and freedom of demonstration and this and that. Okay, nobody was saying anything. Now on the Trump side, it's like, he was inciting violence and all that stuff just because he didn't detract from it. So you can get into that debate, but these companies do have at the end the right to say, okay, we're going to ban you or not ban you because you are using our property. But like you said,
but then when you start banning, I'm okay. Like, if you actually have open competition of platforms, then fine. Platforms can just say, I mean, it's no different, because the slippery slope is like, for example, like in a Facebook group or something. Let's go very more niche. If you're in a Facebook group that's about a certain topic, and then someone starts talking about all sorts of other topics, and they say, hey, we don't talk about that here.
You're
and if
going
you keep
off
doing
topic.
that, we're going to get rid of you.
Right.
That's totally okay.
Right.
If you want to talk about, it's like if you're in some group, the worst thing is when you're in some group about something and then somebody starts talking politics and say, hey, we don't talk politics here. You know, you want to talk politics, there's plenty of places to go talk politics, right? So that's totally fine. But then when you say, oh no, but we're going to ban the competition too, so that the places where you can have total free speech, you're banned off the App Store. And then immediately after that, oh, you're not banned off the App Store, but we're going to take your hosting away. We're going to take your payment processing away. I mean, this is how a business lives.
We're going to take away the hosting. We're going to take your store away.
If you take away the hosting and payment processing, that is literally like a business's oxygen.
Lifeblood. Yeah,
that's shutting off the electricity and then sucking the oxygen out of a house.
So yeah, I mean, we consider ourselves the land of the free and the home of the brave and all this country with the most freedom and everything. And then when you think about it, I mean, that's what Russia and China and all these countries do to their companies.
Right, and the worst part too is when people were saying, like, for Twitter, they're like, okay, so like the Ayatollah in Iran, he has a Twitter account. He's not banned.
Yeah.
And it's like,
exactly.
And then Chinese Communist Party propaganda accounts that were talking about how they were euthanizing the Uyghurs, like, openly. They weren't banned. And it's like, okay, are we going to ban people or are we not? Because you can't just, and the other thing too is, you can't just ban people. I mean, the Trump inciting violence, okay, I don't want to get into that argument, fine, whatever. But then when, like, Ron Paul got banned off Facebook, when he hadn't posted anything, I mean, he literally was like, I have no idea what.
He got banned based on his history more than his present.
And it's like, just because you don't like people
doesn't
mean you should just ban them. And this is becoming a thing where it's like, now it's not like before. It was always like, oh, you have to have a threat. Like, Twitter was always very clear that if you threaten people, that we will ban you. And they've done that for years. And most of the time when people get banned, it's because they either threaten or, a lot of people will make fake threats on Twitter, right? That they don't really mean it, but Twitter doesn't know. Hey, we don't know. It's no different than, like, if I threaten you in real life, say, I'm going to beat your ass. And I say, oh, I didn't really mean it. It's like, well, okay, I don't know.
There's the context thing.
Right? But so that's one thing. But then if you just start banning people that you don't like, that's different.
This is another thing that I thought about this morning, and it's completely unrelated. I mean, it's related, but it's a different, completely example. And this is specifically Apple, when they are such a strong privacy advocate and all that. You remember years ago when the San Bernardino shootings and all that stuff, the famous iPhone that they wouldn't unlock for the FBI and all that stuff because they didn't, the FBI was asking for the iPhone to track the killers, basically, that put the bomb and all that stuff. And Apple was basically saying, no, we're not going to do it because we preserve the privacy of our customers, blah, blah, all that stuff. And there was that big discussion whether they should do it or not. Okay, those are basically terrorists that kill people in a parking lot in San Bernardino, California, and that was basically proven. We just need to have the iPhone unlocked and all that stuff. Some people said, okay, yeah, I respect Apple's position, all that stuff. But now this is the same Apple that decides to ban apps from the App Store for people that are utilizing an app to communicate their thoughts. So you start realizing that these companies have so much power in deciding what to do or not to do, because you're going to be extra patriotic and defending whatever you think is defensible, and saying, okay, well, we're going to ban all these apps and everything because they just put a big label on them saying they're becoming the alternative for radicals or whatever, or inciting violence. But then when a person is using your device to actually cause violence and to cause a crime and a terrorist act, then you say, oh no, we need to have privacy and we're not going to unlock it for the FBI.
Right.
I defend that if they want to do that other way, but it's like...
I did too. I said, listen, Apple wants to preserve the integrity of their customers' privacy. I agreed with them.
Yeah, that's fine. But then at the same time, they act one way, and now a few years later, now we have the president of the United States. I mean, yeah, whatever, again, I'm not getting into what he did or didn't do or how he did it, what he said or didn't say, whatever. But it's like, you cannot just cut his supply, you cannot just basically act like a communist country, I mean, pretty much you're comparing like Snowden went to Russia because he's like, okay, he's living much better than, because he revealed, acts of against people's privacy, and all of, I mean, and that's what Russian government will do on Chinese. I mean, they'll say, hey, this is our platform. You can use it. We're gonna monitor everything. That was the whole discussion with TikTok and all that stuff, saying, okay, your information is going to China. That's what Trump was going to ban it because you're putting all the information going there and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, and now we are cutting off our own freedom of speech. Okay. So I don't even want, and this is something that is,
Well, this gets back to the decentralization.
Exactly.
And this
exactly.
is why.
But that was my point. That it's not. I don't want to make it like it's a Democratic thing or Democrat thing or Republican thing.
No, it's not.
It's just basically whoever is in government. I don't want. Republicans to ban Biden.
I don't
in
like
the future either. Or
I don't
whatever
like
other
a lot
president.
of people. There's plenty of people that I don't like, and I wish I never had to hear from again. But I don't think that they should be banned. I think
Exactly.
people should have a voice. But that's why I think people have been talking about decentralized internet for years now. I mean, many, many years now. And now I think the more broader public is realizing, oh, this is a big deal. Like, oh, these companies can just do that. Especially when it was like all at once, where all of a sudden every platform, infrastructure, whether it was like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everybody banned him, and then AWS banned Parler, and App Store and Google both at the same time banned Parler, and it's like those are the two. I mean, who is using anything but Apple and Android other than like a few fucking hackers out there? I mean, literally.
Yeah, and if you remember, Sorry, did you finish or?
No, I mean, I think that people kind of woke up. It's funny because I saw plenty of people who were very left-leaning and hate Donald Trump who were like, this is kind of crazy. And then especially, like I said, the thing for me more than Twitter banning Trump is when they started banning Parler and then cutting off the AWS and all that. That's crazy.
And that's the thing that when they say, oh, well, employees were complaining. Okay, now we're listening to employees to complain. So the company, or maybe there's an excuse to the company making a decision like that, saying, okay, we're going to just cut him off, suspend the hosting. I don't get that. But the other point is that if you remember, it was like 3-4 months ago when they had the congressional hearings where they were basically questioning all the big tech CEOs and all that stuff. And you've had the famous questionnaire from TechCrunch and all that asking about uneven treatment of different people on Trump and this, and it's like that. Welcome back. It's like that didn't do anything, like all the conversation to basically say, hey, you guys need to be a little more neutral, or we're gonna basically separate you, or we're gonna be separating the Facebook from the WhatsApp from the Instagram, and then Apple and the App Store and all that stuff. It's like just a few months later, they're acting like they can do whatever the fuck they want. Honestly, I mean, it's totally crazy.
They can. I mean, they can right now, at least under the current laws. There's nothing stopping them from doing what they just did. But that's the truth. That's why you have to ask yourself who has the real power in America. It's like if you can, not to steal from Naval, but he actually tweeted it very perfectly. He said, "If you can silence the king, then you are the king."
Right. Yeah, that's a great quote.
And that's what it is.
Right.
I mean, it's that simple. So, listen. I mean, I think people get too emotional about these things where they can't think they can't think objectively about this. Like I'm very ready to move on from Donald Trump. It's over.
Again,
it's done.
I'm not.
And,
I understand.
And it's like, let's move on. But it's not just like today it's Donald Trump. Tomorrow it'll be somebody else.
That's the point.
That's the thing.
That's the point. Donald Trump is just the almost the straw that broke the camel's back, if you will, in this situation.
The thing.
But I'm talking beyond this case.
To put it very.
What if
to put it very specifically, to put it very succinctly, basically what happened was the sitting elected president of the United States, whether you like him or not, whether you voted for him or not, I'm not a big fan, but it doesn't matter. He is the sitting elected president of the United States.
Who, by the way, got what, 70, 80 million votes. So he's a big chunk of the American voting population as far as popularity.
Right. Okay. Let me finish. He's the sitting president of the United States who was elected. Okay. Whether you like him or not, doesn't matter. He is the president of the United States. And all of a sudden, the tech companies got together and basically said, we don't like this guy. We don't want him to be in power anymore. We're going to basically take all his power away from him. We're going to completely cut him off. The unelected, unaccountable tech companies who nobody chose who's in charge of them. Nobody is regulating these tech companies. They can pretty much do whatever they want right now. They basically overthrew the president of the United States. Mm-hmm. That's what happened. Right. Again, whether you like Donald Trump or not, doesn't matter. That's what happened. And it's like, think about that for a second. And then ask yourself, okay, who has the real power in this country? Is it the politicians or is it the media and tech companies who rule over them?
I just wonder if it was the other way around. Like it could be in the future, what would happen. I mean, back in the days, Facebook was very much, Facebook was accused of helping Trump be elected with the Russian influx and all that stuff, which was never proven. And now they're also accused of the opposite. So I just wonder if this was happening in the future to the other side, whether it's Biden or who knows, another candidate or something. All of a sudden you cut him off as far as giving them a platform to express what they need to say to defend themselves. Okay, well, that's completely... we're in the elections where you're supposed to have equal time for equal candidates. You have the stopwatch and, 2 minutes to answer, 2 minutes to answer. Okay, sorry, you went out your time. And now it's like, for this, it's like, forget the 2 minutes. It's like you have nothing. You have no platform. We're going to cut you off, ban you, and you go to another place. We're going to ban the hosting. If you go create your own hosting, the government's going to cut off whatever. It's like, you're going to have to go door to door and spread your word or your message, or rely on people that are going to demonstrate and then say, hey, we're still like this person. It's not like a minority. He has 70 million supporters that voted for him. So whether it's, again, this is not pro-Trump, this is pro-freedom, saying, okay, it could be Trump, it could be something else, but there needs to be a way so you are not just totally ostracized, for when you are the acting president for still 2 more weeks, impeached or not or whatever. So, all right.
Let's take a quick break.
Let's take a break? Yeah. All right. We're going to get back into some NBA news and all that stuff.
Okay.
We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back. David, I wanted to end this week's podcast with NBA news. You were telling me a lot of things going on with, first of all, there was a blockbuster trade yesterday. All I know is that James Harden is finally out of Houston and going to New York, the Nets. Brooklyn. Okay, not exactly New York, but New York area, to the Nets. But I don't know the details. I know it was like multi-team. All that stuff is too complicated for my basic mind to understand. But go ahead and give us a little bit of an update on it. Not just that, but also NBA in general.
Yeah, people can look up the trade details. This
is what we're here for. These are the trade details.
There's, a million picks.
Yeah.
They gave, I think, 3 firsts. Brooklyn gave 3 first-round draft picks and 3 pick swaps. And a pick swap just basically means, say the 2023 pick swap. It would basically mean whoever has the better draft pick,
they can swap it.
They get the dip.
Okay.
So Brooklyn gave a bunch of picks to Houston, and then they got James Harden, obviously, but they also sent out Karis LeVert, who is a good young player, and then they sent out Jared Allen, who is their center. He actually went to Cleveland, so it was a 4-team trade with Houston, Brooklyn, but then also Cleveland and Indiana. And then, so Jared Allen went to Cleveland. Indiana got Karis LeVert and I forget another guy. And then they traded Victor Oladipo to Houston. And Houston got, I think, one of Cleveland's first-round picks, Victor Oladipo.
This makes me feel like the players are like pawns. They just basically get moved around.
So, anyways, basically the point is like a major. People can look up all the details. Woj on Twitter. I'm sure if you're an NBA person, you know who Woj is.
Adrian Wojnarowski.
You go look it up. He tweeted it. But basically, the main headline is that James Harden is
traded.
Brooklyn. James Harden is in Brooklyn, and I think the other better player would be basically Karis LeVert, who was like the young good player who a lot of teams were kind of interested in. He's now in Indiana, and Victor Oladipo is in Houston, which I didn't see coming. I'm a big Oladipo guy. I have not given up on him. I think some people have post his injury. I still think he can be the all-NBA guy.
As little as I know about basketball and the NBA, but when I see him play, I see the guy is pretty
I don't mind this for Houston because obviously Houston, I mean, they basically get to reset and rebuild, right? They had Harden for 7 years or something, 2013. When did that
They
trade
won no
happen?
championship with him, so
they had him for 7
They had
years.
Chris Paul, and they had all this, and they had Westbrook, and they had all this, and basically
I mean, they gave it a good shot, right? They 2018, they came very close to basically getting that championship. They fell short in Game 7 when Chris Paul got injured to the Warriors. So, they had their chances. And then after they traded, I thought trading Chris Paul was a bad decision. Chris Paul wanted out because they basically stopped getting along with Harden.
So did Westbrook, by the way.
Yeah,
now
and so
Wall also doesn't get along with Westbrook.
Hold on. Stop. And so, no, but for Houston, basically, okay, you had a guy. I mean, it happens. Listen, you have a guy for 7 years. All right, it didn't work out. Let's move on. It's like a divorce. It's like, all right, we tried it, didn't work.
7-year itch.
Let's move on. So, okay, whatever. Now he's on Brooklyn. For Houston, they have Victor Oladipo, who I like. He'll be there for 1 year, and then they can decide if they want to re-sign him or not. That'll be an interesting team. Oladipo and John Wall and Boogie Cousins. And then you have the big one, which is Brooklyn now. I was thinking about this yesterday. If you're talking pure, raw, offensive talent, not best team, but pure, raw offensive talent, this may be the most talented offensive team in the history of the NBA.
Assuming they all show up, because Kyrie Irving is AWOL.
Yes. But I mean, seriously, I was thinking about it. I was like, pure, raw talent offensively, this may be the best team ever.
Again, if they all show up.
And okay,
I'm
enough
serious.
with your snarky jokes.
I'm
being honest for a second. Hold on. And so, and that's basically, if you're Brooklyn, that's why you do this trade. You say, listen, with Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, as far as pure raw offensive talent, it is the best team in the history of the NBA. As far as that. I'm not saying they're the best team in the history of the NBA. They're
Understood, but we know.
But that's the upside. And the upside is, if you can get the question is not the talent, right? The question is just, can you get these guys to all play together and to buy in together?
Chemistry, exactly.
And because if you can, right? If you can get all three of these guys to buy in, and then their teammates obviously to buy in too, this is the best team in the league. I mean, it's not a question.
Right, but we know other examples of
now
dream team type things, like super teams, like when LeBron went to Miami and got Chris Bosh, and he was obviously
but they
joining
won 2 championships.
Dwayne Wade, and it wasn't like a sure deal. I mean, they
but they won 2 championships.
They won 2 championships. The first year they didn't win it. They lost to Dallas, and they lost to San
It's
Antonio.
hard to win the first year.
Right.
I mean, I'm not. Again, we don't need to get into like this.
No, I know. But I'm saying that just having all these all stars doesn't automatically mean a championship.
No, it doesn't automatically mean.
Right.
But
and they also said the Nets were going to be very strong when they already had Kevin Durant in full power, and new coach, new
I kind of was liking the team already. I mean, they've had their the bummer was that Spencer Dinwiddie, who was kind of the main guard, the third ball handler on the starting lineup with Kyrie and KD, that he got injured. Mm-hmm. He tore his ACL, so he's out for the year. So that was the bummer. But the team was super deep, because they had Karis LeVert, they had guys like Taurean Prince, Joe Harris.
How are they doing this year so far?
They're not doing great right now, record-wise. But again, it's hard because they had COVID. Like, Kevin Durant missed games because of COVID, and then
But he already had COVID before. That's weird.
I don't know. Anyways, doesn't matter. This year, don't look at anybody's records right now. It's too up in the air. Half the players have canceled games, missed games because of COVID, whatever. So it's too early. Small sample size. But I think longer term they looked really good, and that they, as they developed, they would have been a better team.
The West we know is very competitive, but who will be the rival in the East?
I mean, obviously the Bucks, Giannis, and
Is
Celtics,
still a contender?
and the Sixers. Yeah. I mean, you know, typical teams for the last few years in the East, but they're the favorites in the East for
They
sure.
are now. Okay.
Yeah, I think they already were, and now they definitely.
So
are.
you think Harden will definitely blend in with I mean, he's going with his previous coach with D'Antoni is now the assistant coach, and then Steve
blend
Nash.
in? I mean, I don't know what you mean by that. What do you mean? Which
Will he basically get along with Durant again?
I mean, they're very good friends, him and Durant. That's one of the reasons this this trade happened. So, yeah, but I think it's hard to go from being the man on your team to now
exactly.
being the second guy.
He's going to be the second guy?
No shit. Yeah, I mean, Kevin Durant is the best player on that
Right,
team.
I know. So, but that Harden knows that. Because Harden already played under Durant.
Wow.
And then he went away from Durant to be the main guy.
He didn't go away. He got traded.
Okay, he got traded, but basically he was the sixth man of the year when he was with Oklahoma. And then he went to Houston to be the main man. And then that didn't work out with all the other...
My bigger question is actually with Kyrie, because Kyrie's now the third guy.
Yeah.
And the whole reason Kyrie left LeBron in the first place
He didn't want to be the second guy.
because he didn't want to be the second guy.
And then he went to Boston.
And now he's the third guy. So,
Well,
I mean, listen, it's been talked about to death, Kyrie Irving. I mean, there's not much more to say. The guy is his own rogue entity. He disappeared for a week. He hasn't showed up to any games in a week. And he's been seen at like birthday parties and politician town halls. And I don't know what he's up to. He's not communicating.
I'll say ban him from Twitter.
He's not really communicating with the team, apparently. So I have no idea. I'm not going to speculate on what Kyrie Irving's up to. I can't tell you. It's anybody. It's like, it's funny because Kyrie Irving is, especially when he was in Cleveland. I mean, he was my favorite player.
He was
to
good.
watch.
Yeah,
I mean,
the finals when they beat Cleveland. When they beat the Warriors when he was with Cleveland. That was the highlight.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that was his peak. Because obviously he had the famous game where both him and LeBron scored 40-something points. And
I did like him there. I mean, he was unbelievable. Movement, changing directions, ball handling, everything. I mean, it was.
He still has that. I mean, when you watch,
as far as I know, back then he didn't have much of an attitude. He was just kind of like a competitive player. But I think he didn't develop that kind of.
I mean, you watch him. I mean, he's still that. I mean, I've been watching Nets games, and he's still, when he's playing, it's like, when he's on, man. And there's a reason why people put up with his shit, because he's that good. And the same thing with Harden. I mean, at the end of the day, the reason why teams put up with all this shit these guys pull is because they're fucking good. You know?
Yeah, but it's a team sport too.
James Harden was at strip clubs, and then all of a sudden, the first game of the season, he comes out, he scores 40 points.
Yeah, but
you know, and that's
you need to realize too. I mean, you mentioned yesterday.
Hold on, I'm not saying that they're not. I'm not saying that they're right, but I'm saying the reason why people listen. If you're a bench player and you pull the same shit that these guys do, you get cut from the team. But these guys can pull it.
No, but I'm not talking about
good.
What they do as far as being prima donnas, how they act and all that stuff. I'm saying about how little, like in the case of Harden, even his teammates were basically saying that he was completely disrespectful.
I agree. It was disrespectful.
So a lot of players are prima donnas with ownership, with this and that, but they are very good team players in this. Like, I mean, I can see in soccer like Messi's and Ronaldo's and other players that are like, they're very much entrenched with their teams, and the team players, the players love them as leaders. Now they are also rogue or something with ownership. It's hard, but Harden is never been.
I think it's hard to love Harden when you play with him, because at least when he was in Houston, because the whole thing is around him. Like, I mean, he has the highest use rate in the league. He's just dribbling the hell out of the ball, ISO ball all the time. And he does it because he's one of the best ISO players ever. And so that's why they did it that way. And obviously, Daryl Morey, when he was the GM, they built the team around James Harden. And it was basically, he's one of the best players.
I still don't understand how they got Westbrook on the same team, too, when they're both.
That was... I don't think that was Daryl Morey. I think that was James Harden wanted Westbrook, and the Rockets had new ownership, and the ownership wanted to please Harden, and so they got Russell Westbrook. And it's that simple, because Russell Westbrook can't shoot, and Daryl Morey is the guy who basically said, I want threes and layups, and that's it. And so there's no way he brings in a guy who can't shoot threes.
All right. So,
But the point is, yeah, listen, they make it work. If they can get them all to align, they're the best team in the league. It's that simple. And that's why Brooklyn does it. Now, the negative side, Harden has 2 years on his contract. KD and Kyrie, I think, both are on 2 or 3 year contracts.
and they're all making.
If it blows up, if it doesn't work, and these guys blow up and all separate,
these 3 guys alone had like $120 million per
it's
year.
not about the money. It's about them leaving.
Yeah.
If this blows up, they just traded all of their first round draft picks for the
They're
next
basically
fucking decade.
Yeah, they're basically dead in the water. Yeah.
And if you remember, they've done this before. I don't know if you recall, but the Nets traded for Paul Pierce and
I
Kevin
remember.
Garnett,
yeah.
and they traded a ton of first round draft picks. Well, you know who those draft picks turned into? Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum for
Yeah.
for them.
Celtics, yeah.
And there's another player that it turned into too. But basically, those Nets picks turned into franchise guys in the future. I hope that doesn't happen again for the Nets.
That'll be their problem.
I'm rooting for the Nets because I love Steve Nash, and I want Steve Nash to get a ring.
Yeah, since he didn't get it as a player, hopefully he'll
I
get it
like
as a
Kevin
coach.
Durant. I do like Kevin Durant. I feel for the guy that he basically won 2 Finals MVPs with the Warriors and won championships, and nobody gives him any credit. Fair, okay. He went to the fucking 73-9 team, so okay, you should know that. But he still was the best player on that team, and he won 2 Finals MVPs, and people act like he's a nobody.
Okay.
So I think that we'll see. Now,
Okay.
the more
Hold on. We have 60 seconds left. I want to wrap it up, but I want to discuss the
are
projected.
we on a timer? Do we have to go to commercial break?
Yeah, we
or-
need to go to commercial break, which is basically back to work. But no, I wanted to ask you about the projected Western Conference Finals between the Lakers and the Suns.
Yes.
What do you say about that?
I think right now the Suns are the 3rd best team in the West.
First Lakers, second Clippers.
Yeah, right now.
Okay.
And the Clippers, I think, are very beatable. They don't look great.
Yeah. Okay. Suns are doing actually much better than I expected. I even watch myself these days sometimes. Just
No, you
to
don't.
you
You
force
don't
me.
watch the Suns.
But a little bit. I'll get there after the All-Star break.
I mean, the argument for the Suns is very simple. With the 3rd best defense in the league right now, the offense has been shit. Devin Booker, Chris Paul are still learning to play with each other.
Mikal Bridges is doing very well too.
It's been 11 games, so it takes time to build the offense. Mikal Bridges looks like an all-defense guy, and he's shooting the hell out of the ball. The team has the depth, and basically Chris Paul and Devin Booker have not actually played that well. The offense hasn't been that good, and we are 7-4. And I just think that if you give us 60 more games, that will be pretty good.
So record-wise, 7-4 the Suns, Lakers are
10-3.
Oh, they've played that many games, huh?
Because the Suns have canceled games now, which is a whole other
Okay,
thing.
well, what's my final question? So COVID is starting to have a serious effect on the NBA. Before, obviously, they finished the season in the bubble in Orlando, and that kind of was a control environment. Now they're playing normal schedules with no fans, whatever, but, they're traveling and all that stuff. So now they're having canceled games, including the Suns, who didn't play yesterday. They were supposed to play.
And now tomorrow just got canceled.
And now tomorrow got canceled, too. So we're seeing not just the Suns on the Suns that
yesterday,
teams,
last night, Wednesday night, we're recording this Thursday, there were 3 canceled games.
3 canceled games.
Yeah.
Right. And making up those games is going to be tough when they start accumulating. So
Yeah.
what do you think is going to happen? Or what are people saying, the people that are
Well,
into
the NBA Board of Governors, which is like all the owners and GMs, met. And they basically said we're going to have to be a lot more strict. And they gave their new guidelines. And I think they're going to start fining guys for not following protocols because nobody's been fined yet.
What protocols are they not following as far as like personal on the game time or outside of the
I
game?
think
or?
outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like going out parties and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I heard something about not allowing them to high fives or shit like that.
Yeah,
But that's kind of
that's
silly
dumb.
because you're touching the player in defense and everything,
I
and then
mean,
you don't high
if
five.
you're playing a whole game
Yeah.
and then they're like, oh, but they shouldn't like talk pre-game or post-game. It's like, yeah, but they're playing each other.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
whole
that's
game.
kind of
I
how
think that's
token
kind of
thing.
dumb.
Yeah.
The main thing is what they're doing outside of the court, basically, not to bring the virus in.
Right.
And that's where they're gonna have to be a lot more strict.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I mean, it's a tight season. They already reduced it from 82 to 72 games. And now they start canceling games, which is not that easy to reschedule when it affect multiple teams.
Well,
on
the
multiple
reason they
times.
have the season set up, they only have it scheduled through March, and they did that on purpose because they anticipated that they'd have to cancel games. And so they only scheduled through March. And then in March, after the All-Star break, they're going to do basically a new schedule and probably will make up a lot of these games.
And then they'll probably maybe they'll even make a bubble or something for the second half of the season.
No bubble. They're not doing a bubble.
They're not going to do that.
No. Players.
I mean, they don't
hated
have fans anyways at the stadium.
The players hated it. They're not doing a
Oh,
bubble.
they did?
Again. Yeah.
Okay.
Players don't want to live in a hotel room for 3 months again.
Yeah, but is either that or not playing? I mean, I don't know. All right. Any other NBA news that so far?
No. I think that's
So
it
aside
for
from
now.
this blockbuster trade affecting 4 teams, anybody else trade anything? Or
No, I mean, the other one was going to be Ben Simmons for James Harden. And that
Right.
looked like it was going to happen. Yesterday, it was literally, they're saying, it looks like it's a done deal. And then at the very last minute, the Nets made the other deal. And so Ben Simmons is staying with the Nets. Or I'm sorry, with the Sixers.
with the Sixers, and that team stays the same. So was there a trade deadline or something at that point, or it was just that it was just kind of brewing?
No, it was
Okay.
that James Harden was
He basically
giving up
was-
on the team.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, I was going to talk about F1 news too, but we unfortunately ran out of time, and the F1 season doesn't start now until March, late March now.
Oh,
because
we
the
have plenty of time to talk about it.
Yeah, I know. So, in fact, there's new news almost every day. I just found out this morning, by the way, speaking of COVID, that Charles Leclerc also have COVID now. He got infected. He tested positive. He has mild symptoms, whatever. But now he's the 5th driver also with COVID. Last week it was Lando Norris, one of your favorites from McLaren. So it's the same thing with the drivers. Basically, they're now in the off season and they're hanging out. And they were both in Abu Dhabi, I think, hanging out, partying, and friends and stuff, and no mask, whatever. And then they all came back and got it. So during the season, they were very strict with their policies. They were testing them like airport, racetrack every day, blah blah blah, all that stuff. And now it's just not happening. So
They'll figure it out.
but anyways, they don't. It's not affecting anything because they don't start until March anyway. So, all right, guys. Well, that's all we have for today. We did a lot of heavy crypto and platform, deplatform, and cancel culture in the beginning, and then we ended up with some NBA news. But we'll have more information next week and a new president as well. We'll see you soon.
That's right.
Bye bye.